Hi, welcome to Paranormal Lens, presented by Jotnick's Paranormal. I'm Kirstin Truccano, and with me is Jamie Widener and Chad Thomas.
Good evening.
Hey, Kirsten.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep, I survived musical theater week.
perfect.
and I survived seeing the musical, so yay!
Yeah,
I survived an audition, so
Ooh,
all
congratulations.
around theater.
Yep,
that's
yep.
where it's at.
So,
Yeah, I'll say this, Chad. Great production. The set was gorgeous. All the stuff that I know you were hands on, but also the kids, that perform. This is a high school production, senior high production of the Music Man, and it was really good. I mean, it never isn't good, or great.
mhm,
But this one is one of those classic ones, and every time there's the old school ones, there's expectation because they've been around forever, and people
mhm,
have seen them and have a certain way they want to have it be presented to them. And I thought the cast was well selected. The band, the orchestra was fantastic. The sets were gorgeous. It just felt like you were there in a lot of ways. So
yep.
well done. Kudos to the Penn Manor Theater group, and on to the next, right? Um,
Well, we're still tearing it apart, but yeah,
well,
then
yeah, fair
then,
enough.
then on to the next. Yeah, we're
It
we're already talking about next year. So,
takes 3 months to build and 3 days to tear it down.
hmm
Crazy.
I say you get a week, and then you get to start again.
yep. So,
All right, on to the
so
next.
yeah, it was fun. So, but we're not here to talk about theater. That's a whole nother. We could do a whole nother podcast on that.
Kind of
But
did once, didn't we? A little bit,
we did, yeah, yeah.
sort of. We did some
We,
superstition,
and we talked about some theaters.
theater-based stuff back in the day.
Yeah, but
Back in the day, like it was that long ago. It was like 2 years ago, but still, you know,
Back in
feels
the
long.
early days.
Yeah, back when the podcast was in black and white.
no, Jamie, no.
No,
No.
okay, all right, fine, fine.
But I
Hey,
think you were taking notes on Slate, though.
well, yeah, always. I wrote in on my dinosaur that day. Um, my backup one because the good one was in the garage.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, before we get too far, I want to say Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody.
Yeah.
For those who celebrate, I am celebrating with a Shamrock Shake. So, yay!
This is as green as my shirts go.
I mean, I'm wearing green.
I can't show you, but I got green Chuck Taylors on. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect.
I'm glad it was a Chuck Taylor's.
Wait,
I,
do I
so
see
I,
a
I can't
green
get my leg this
thing?
high. I can't show you.
Think I see a green shirt?
I do, yeah.
So,
So my grandfather was Irish, so I always joke that I'm Irish every day, or at least somewhat. So, but St. Patrick's Day is always a lot of fun, for more than one reason. The usual outdoor, going out and celebrating in the bar and such. Okay, cool, but just the culture, the food, all the fun of that. Um, yeah, obviously it's not what you would expect in Ireland, of course, but uh,
Right.
the same way. But we always Americanize everything here because we're
hmm
Americans, I guess. It has to have to do it that way. But um, on the whole, it's a thing. So enjoy
yeah.
if you do
Happy St. Patrick's Day from Heather. So thank you, Heather.
as well. As well.
Thank you.
So,
All right. Well, we are not here to talk about St. Patrick
No,
or
we're not.
theater. So what are we here to do?
Well, I feel like we're gonna follow a little bit in the theme of what last week was, and we're gonna talk about a hotel.
Okay.
So yeah, we're ready. Well,
which hotel is it?
Is this a Clarion somewhere or
no,
Red Roof?
I mean it's a pretty famous hotel. Was in a book and a movie. Stephen King kind of was inspired by it.
Never heard of him.
I think it goes by the name Stanley Hotel.
You were right, Jamie. It does have a red roof.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
It also has red rum.
Interesting. Remember, we got to be careful. We don't want to get sued.
I don't know. I don't know if Stephen King would.
He seems pretty cool. You know,
All right,
he's
with
got people.
that,
He's got people. So
No.
that. We'll get
Kirsten, I'm not sure if it's the same for everybody, but you just got real quiet.
Yeah, you did lost. We dropped off a
Can you
little
hear
bit
me
there.
now?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Great. All right. Picture this. A massive white hotel sitting alone on a Colorado hillside. The Rocky Mountains loom behind it like an ancient guardian. The air is thin, cold, and perfectly quiet until night falls. Then the stories begin. Guests wake up to footsteps pacing empty hallways. Piano music echoes through the rooms where there is no pianist sits. Doors open on their own. Luggage moves when no one touches it. In one particular room, an invisible housekeeper is said to still be making beds. Tonight we talk about one of the most famous haunted hotels in the United States, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. Perched about 5 miles from the entrance to the Rocky Mountain National Park, the Stanley overlooks Lake Estes and towering peaks known as Long's Peak. It's beautiful during the day, bright and elegant, but after dark, many believe the hotel belongs to something else entirely. The hotel isn't just famous for its ghost stories, it also inspires one of the most iconic horror stories ever written when Stephen King stayed there in the 1970s and imagined the Overlook Hotel from his novel The Shining. But the true chilling part of this, most of the hauntings people report today seem to predate the book. So, we're going to go ahead and dive into some of that. The story of the Stanley Hotel begins with a man who was never expected to live long, even long enough to build it. His name was Freeland Oscar Stanley, better known as F.O. Stanley. If the name sounds familiar, it might be because he helped invent something revolutionary at the turn of the 20th century, the Stanley steam engine. So, in other words, he was the creator of the Stanley Steamer, a steam-powered automobile that competed with the early gasoline cars. By 1903, Stanley had a much bigger problem than the future of automobiles. He had tuberculosis. At the time, tuberculosis was often a death sentence. Doctors told him he'd probably had 6 months left to live. Instead of preparing for death, his doctor suggested something unusual, to go west and breathe mountain air. So Stanley and his wife, Flora, traveled to Estes Park, Colorado, to spend the summer in a friend's cabin. And something remarkable happened with that. His health improved. The mountain air seemed to restore him. Within months, he felt stronger than he had in years. Flora fell in love with the scenery as well, but there was one problem. She missed the elegance of the East Coast. The cabin they stayed in was rustic, charming, but hardly luxurious. So Stanley decided to build something that doesn't exist in the Rocky Mountains yet. A grand luxury resort. Something that would rival the great hotels of New England. Construction on the Stanley began in 1906. When Stanley purchased land that had once belonged to the infamous figure of the Colorado history, an Irish nobleman by the name Lord Dunraven. Dunraven had attempted to claim thousands of acres of land in the region during the 1870s, hoping to create a private hunting reserve. The problem with that? Much of the land wasn't legally his. Eventually, locals drove him out after accusations of fraud and intimidation. But his story wouldn't end there, and we'll come back to that later. Stanley's hotel was designed in the Georgian architectural style, elegant and symmetrical with the towering white columns. When it opened in 1909, it was considered one of the most luxurious hotels west of the Mississippi. Guests enjoyed amenities that were rare for the time, electrical lights, telephones, running water. But interestingly, there was no central heat. The hotel was meant to be a summer resort, operating only during the warm months, when wealthy elites came here to escape the heat of the cities and enjoy the mountain air. and the guest list quickly became impressive. Visitors included socialite Margaret Brown, or better known as the unsinkable Molly Brown, famous composer John Philip Sousa, and even U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt. For years, the Stanley was known for elegance, music, and high society. But it wouldn't stay that way forever, because in 1911, something happened inside the hotel that would become the origin of its most famous haunting. On the evening of June 25th, 1911, the quiet town of Estes Park heard a massive explosion. People nearly a mile away reported hearing the blast. The source? Inside the Stanley Hotel. More specifically, near room 217. At the time, the hotel had recently installed a gas lighting backup system in case of electrical plant failed. That day, the staff activated the gas lines for the first time. Unfortunately, the pipes may not have been tested properly. Gas began leaking between the dining room and second floor. And then the head chambermaid Elizabeth Wilson walked into room 217, unaware of the leak. She lit a candle. The explosion that followed was catastrophic. Witnesses reported that a bathtub launched into the air, doors were blown off their hinges, and 10 massive windows shattered. Nearly 10% of the hotel was destroyed. Elizabeth was thrown through the floor and into the dining room below. Miraculously, she survived. Both her ankles were broken, but she lived. 2 other employees were injured as well. For most hotels, this would just be a strange historical accident. But at the Stanley, it's believed Elizabeth Wilson never truly left. For after she died, she has been seen there a few times. Room 217 is now the most famous room in the Stanley Hotel. Guests have reported paranormal activity there since the late 1950s, and nearly all of it seems to be connected to Elizabeth Wilson. But unlike many ghost stories, Lizzie's spirit doesn't appear to be hostile. If anything, she seems extremely dedicated to her job. Guests frequently report waking up to find their room cleaned while they slept. Clothes folded, shoes arranged neatly, luggage moved. People have also reported seeing a woman in old-fashioned clothing walking through the room before disappearing through a wall. But Lizzie also appears to have opinions about hotel guests. Unmarried couples have reported feeling an invisible force pushing them apart in bed. Even stranger, single male guests have claimed their luggage mysteriously appeared outside their room overnight. It's as if someone was politely suggesting that they check out. Even celebrities have had strange encounters here. During the filming of the movie Dumb and Dumber, actor Jim Carrey reportedly requested to stay in room 217. He left the room after only a few hours and refused to talk about what happened. To this day, no one knows what actually frightened him. Another hotspot for the paranormal activity at the Stanley Hotel is the concert hall. Stanley originally built it for his wife Flora. She loved music, so he created a performance space modeled after the Boston Symphony Hall. But the building has developed a reputation for something other than music. Ghost hunters frequently report activity here connected to a woman named Lucy. According to local stories, Lucy lived inside the abandoned concert hall during the time when the hotel had fallen into disrepair. In the 1990s, when the property was finally renovated, she was forced out, and legend says she froze to death during the winter. Visitors today claim they hear whispers inside the concert hall, doors open and close by themselves, and during ghost hunts, flashlights sometimes turn on and off when investigators ask Lucy questions. 2 other spirits are believed to haunt the hall as well. That is Paul and Edward. Both were maintenance workers who once worked at the Stanley. Paul reportedly died of a heart attack and is said to still enforce the hotel's closing hours. Guests have reported hearing a man yelling at them to leave after 11 p.m. Edward isn't much friendlier. Loud banging and aggressive noises have been reported near the building's front office when he worked there once. Several other rooms of the Stanley Hotel have developed a reputation of their own. Room 407 is said to be haunted by an angry Irishman. Many believe this spirit is actually Lord Dunraven, the controversial landowner who once tried to claim the valley. Guests say lights flicker, hair is tugged, and an unseen presence stands silently in the corner of the room. Then there's room 428. This one may be the creepiest. Guests claim that they feel someone sitting at the foot of their bed. Many report the sensation of a man standing nearby. Some female guests have even reported feeling phantom kisses while they sleep. The spirit here is believed to be the legendary frontiersman known as Rocky Mountain Jim Nugent. Jim was an infamous outlaw who roamed the mountains before Colorado became a state. After the clash with Lord Dunraven over the land rights, he was shot and later died from injury. Some believe his restless spirit still wanders the mountains and the Stanley Hotel. One of the most mysterious hauntings occurred on the 4th floor. Guests frequently report hearing children running through the halls, laughter, footsteps, doors slam, but when they check the hallway, no one's there. Some believe the spirits belong to children who once stayed at the hotel with their families during the early years. Others think they simply may be echoes of the past. Playful energy trapped in the building's walls. Either way, the 4th floor is considered one of the most active paranormal locations of the hotel. In 1974, author Stephen King checked into the Stanley Hotel with his wife. They were nearly the only guests there. The hotel was about to close for the winter. That night, King had a terrifying dream about his young son running through the halls while something chased him. He woke up with the idea for the novel The Shining. Many elements of the story mirror the Stanley Hotel itself. The isolated location, the grand empty halls, the sense of being alone in a massive building filled with history. The Stanley just didn't inspire the story. For many people, it feels like the hotel is the Overlook. Today, the Stanley Hotel remains one of the most famous haunted locations in America. Thousands of visitors come every year hoping to experience something paranormal. Some leave disappointed, others leave with stories they can't explain. But whether the ghosts are real or just legends layered on top of historic building, one thing is for certain. When the wind moves through the mountain at night and the halls grow quiet, the Stanley feels very much alive. And if you ever decide to stay here, you might want to think twice before booking room 217, because the maid may already be inside and she still may be cleaning. I just closed that and I did not source myself yet.
I mean, if I go there, you know which room I'm going to ask for.
Yeah.
I kind of want something on the 4th floor. Sourcing is usghostadventurers.com. And where was the other one? Oh, legendsofamerica.com was my other source.
You know them well.
Yeah,
Well, I'm going to say this with room 217. I'm a little jealous. You know, because why can't my house have a ghost of a maid, like the chambermaid who does
who's
beds and
cleaning?
cleans things and picks up after people? I mean, I could use all the help I can get. You know.
Well, Jamie, first of all, we know you're not allowed to bring a ghost into the house.
Well, I think this might be an exception. Like,
I mean,
you know,
she's cleaning.
what a horrible afterlife, though. Like, you know, like just to keep working. I mean,
Hey, maybe that's what she enjoyed.
Maybe she
perhaps,
enjoys
perhaps,
it.
and that's fair.
Right.
But in the sense of it, if it is, work is work.
Hmm.
The burden of work is this, it's the story of Syphilis, the Greek story of rolling the boulder up the hill every day, getting to the top, next day resetting and do it again. Like that's what I see, here,
Hmm.
how I feel it anyway. Um, and maybe it's not the task, it's the journey. So, it might be something pleasant. I just don't see that on the surface of it from my perspective.
I mean, I swear I had seen it in one of the websites that I looked at, but I can't find it again. I'm pretty sure after her ankles were both healed, she went back to working and she worked there till she was 90.
Oh my.
So
Okay.
she obviously liked it.
No.
Sure. And well, they say if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. So
Yeah.
it helps. That's fair. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, with the blast happening in 1911, as you commented it, though, the activity around Elizabeth started in the 50s, and that's like 35, 40ish years in between.
Hmm.
So is it her from then, or is it something else since then? And this is the challenge in paranormal investigating. No one ever walks out of the wall and introduces themselves to you. You know,
No.
right? So there's a lot of deduction, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of assumption in some ways, because we have to kind of connect dots that may not be obvious, or very faint anyway. So, it could be, hopefully, there's something, hopefully it's true and it is as expected, but it could well be somebody else. And, would you think about it and how many times, my friend, have I called you Kristen?
A lot.
A
A
lot,
lot.
right? It's just not you. It is you, but it isn't you. I mean it to be you.
Right.
So, and I get James all the time for Jamie. Like Chad's just Chad, I guess. I don't know. You get missed
I
call.
get Chadwick.
Well, that's
Chadwick.
fancy.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
is. It
Like,
sounds
is
like
your
a
name
you should be out when you get talked to.
is your
Um,
name short for Chadwick? No.
ah, well, okay. But,
Anyway.
getting called the wrong name, it matters. It details matter, and being assumed to be someone else. How frustrating might that be if you can't articulate who you really are?
Right.
So you just kind of go with it, you know. And I don't correct people anymore. I used to, and okay, cool. My dad's name's James. I get it. It's similar. It seems like it's a nickname for it, and it is to some degree. But you know, what if this is truly somebody else, and we just assuming it's Elizabeth?
Well, I did a quick search, and she did return to work following her recovery. She was rehired as the head chambermaid, and Stanley had covered all her medical expenses
Oh,
during
Well,
her
she was
time.
nice enough for that.
And she served there for about 40 years until she died in 1950 or 51.
wow.
So,
Well, there it is. Okay,
So
that's a good connection. Okay.
I realized these were notes that I didn't put into when I was actually writing everything out. There is a theory behind the hotel.
Okay.
So, there is a theory as to why the hotel is haunted. Although Elizabeth's death is the only documented death in the hotel, there are many other devious and disturbing hauntings happening in the Stanley Hotel. No floor or area is off limits or not. Seem, Seems to be free of activity. Many believe that the source of this activity originates in one spine tingling region. Paranormal investigators claim that the 101-foot wide lobby and spiral staircase are responsible for much high strangeness experienced at the Stanley. A portal above the stairs, created by opposing mirrors, is believed to entice numerous spirits inhabiting the Stanley to stay past checkout. Mirrors facing each other create a metaphysical portal in the spirit realm, allowing the Stanley spirits to remain where they were once happiest. Reports of female apparitions walking their way out of the Stanley Hotel vortex have been cited on news sites all across the world. It acts as a portal to hell, ushering in hundreds of confused and desolate entities. and is one of the most famous connections between dead and living in the U.S. Other rumors exist that the Stanley Hotel was built upon native burial ground, but doubts exist on this theory. In the movie, hotel manager Stuart Ullman explains to Jack Torrance that the hotel is supposed to be built on an Indian burial ground. While this has yet to be proven, the fact that this area was once I don't know how to pronounce them, so I apologize. Utah and Arafo land adds some credence to the subject. Another theory is that the high levels of magnetic quartz in the soil cause the hauntings. This was later disproven by the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society. The vortex is the only theory that at least holds some weight, and has turned the Stanley Hotel into a spectral playground for its many phantoms and spirits.
Okay. Well, knowing that she passed in 50 or 51 connects the dots
Yes.
to the the beginning of the haunt, and that would make sense. Wow, how cool is that? I mean, that's good detail, and that's why it matters to know some of we as investigators. There's two kind of tracks we take. You want to know everything about the place, or you want to know nothing.
Right.
And I get it as a person who may have sensitivities. You don't want to know too much to kind of lean a direction or another. I'm as an unsensitive individual. Here we go again. I want to know. I don't know about the place because I need to know a connection to it. Like I need to understand it, the history and the activities. Just to know where the hotspots even are. And we said this before, but if there's a chance to go to a place and there's a day tour in advance of a nighttime investigation, I will always take that opportunity. And it has some merit. One is, you usually are guided by somebody from the place. And I think of West Virginia Penitentiary, and Chad, you and I were on that together.
Yep. That's where Heather and Bert.
Right, Bert and Heather were there as well, and with that, we had a former prison guard being our guide for the tour, and that's one part. All the histories, and there's a script. I've done that twice now. I that same tour, it's the same story each time, so it's not like he had nuance to it. He might have added a little flavor, but not the detail. But two, you get the lay of the land. You understand where things are. And when the lights go off and it's dark out and, you're just let go, you don't know where you're going. So having an idea of like a strategic kind of thing to know where you want to go, where the activities are, it allows you to get to a place and there's nothing wrong with drifting around. Certainly, you sometimes find the most incredible things that way. But if you have a plan, then, you make sure you touch the spots that you want to get to and give it the due diligence that you want to give it, you generally get more success. But the place looked completely different in the daylight, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
So.
Well, I mean,
And they always do.
yeah, I mean, Trans-Allegheny, like the little bits that we got to see in light and then got turned off, yeah, it looked different.
Yeah.
Yep.
We did the day tour on that as well. I think it's for the exact reasoning of knowing how big the place was. Without it, like the scale is just so, with all the floors and then all the wings, and if we had access to other buildings, if we did not, how much more that would have been to go even further.
Oh boy.
Think
Yep.
about it.
Yeah.
Without having a plan, we would have just been drifting.
Well, that was the other thing I've discovered with the Stanley was there's 11 buildings.
Yeah, it's a property. Yeah.
I didn't realize how massive that property was. I knew there was a concert hall, but I thought it was just the hotel and the concert hall. I didn't realize there was more.
Catching up on a couple comments. Heather's first comment was, "She folds clothes."
Well, that's an exclamation point, not a question. She folds clothes. Yay! See, that's my point.
And then her next comment was, "It sounds like being a mom, cleaning and laundry, then doing it all over again the next day, over and over again. That's not what I'll be doing after I pass."
I don't blame you.
Yeah, and Bert says, "Someplace that size, you have to do a daytime tour."
Yeah, agreed.
I like that they do a Shining tour. They have a regular tour, but if you want just the Shining aspect, you can take that.
Well, it's good they've leaned into it. That's perfect.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I like the
so
fact that after The Shining, they went, "Hey, they had a maze. This was the like management for Stanley. That they had a maze in the movie. We need to add a maze now." Like they really embraced it there.
Oh,
well,
why
it's
not?
marketing. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you have the opportunity to make more money because a movie
Yeah.
was there, why not? So what opportunities are there to investigate? Is it allowed?
It is not allowed, mainly to the fact of it is still a working hotel. However, I feel like if it's like any hotel, if you rent the whole place out, or like near the end of summer into winter when they're kind of going to start closing down, there may not be a lot of people there. But yeah, sadly, you can't just be like, "Hey, we want to investigate."
Well, do they do? There, it looks like they do investigation. There's a group that does investigations there, I think.
Yeah,
So
I don't think it's just. I think it's like on specific times, though.
right.
What I saw.
Well, guys, we talk about this at the brewery all the time. You know, the third floor is a guest hotel. It's a hotel. You know, there are guests that stay. They're
Yeah.
guests of our investigation stay there. You know, so would you want, at 2 in the morning, people walking up and down the hall saying, talking out loud? First of all, like, a party of people, and then, like, hey, if you can hear me make a noise, knock on something, knock like this,
Right.
doing that kind of stuff.
I'd
And
be mad.
I just triggered my dog for that doing that. So sorry.
Oh, I can hear.
But I, all right. So when I investigated the Conjuring house a while back, we all went up. Dave and I and Tim and Erica from our Jotniks, New Jersey team. We all went to it. We all stayed in different places, and the hotel I chose was right off I-95, easy for me to get in and out of, kind of thing. But and I was there for 2 nights because I drove up and I wanted to get some rest. The next night stayed again. The first night was maybe 2:30 in the morning. There are kids running around. I can hear them. Like they wake me up, and there are kids running up and down the hall, laughing and carrying on. Doors banging around, and I'm like, "Am I in The Shining?" First of all, then I realized it was just some kids, randomly who just woke up and decided to do whatever they wanted. Now, it didn't take long for a parent to find them and closing the door reamed them out, and I could hear it because they were down the hall. But it's just one of those things where nobody. I'm sure there were plenty of calls down to the desk, because people don't want that as a
Right.
traveler. Someone putting up their good money to stay at a place, you know. So I totally understand the not having an investigation thing. The opportunity, though, is that, as you mentioned it, in that either end of season or preseason in the spring window. And the spot has been investigated. It's been on programs, so somehow it's been done, and of course with the right amount of money. Like if you mentioned renting out the place, so you know how much that would cost. It was extraordinary.
A lot.
Right out of our budget.
Actually, on
Our
their
zero budget, first of all, but still,
yeah.
therefore, out of our budget.
On their website, there's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night investigation that you can do with Overlook Project. It's a public investigation, like Boobies was. It's $125 a ticket, and then in May it actually goes to 5 nights a week, Wednesday through Sunday.
What? May I feel like it's still early enough. Like,
May in Colorado is still chilly. I can tell you
yeah.
that from being in the Rockies. I used to live in the Rockies, still further south. It's hit or miss.
Yeah, it looks like it goes all season. So maybe they've changed management,
Maybe.
but
I mean, also, who? I don't know how many people are wanting to go hotel up in the Rockies right now. I mean, yes, me
This guy,
too.
this guy does road trip, by the way.
And
yeah.
I like going and hiking mountains, so I would.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna, Chad.
hmm
We know somebody who stayed there.
We do, yeah.
We do, and we know a few people who've stayed there. the Ziegers family did back in the day when they were in the area. They lived in the area, came back to visit, and back somewhere in the 90s or 2000s, not terribly long ago. So, you
Hmm.
know, there's a good reason, all season to be there. I mean, there are plenty of people who love the mountains in the winter. There's tons of skiing and so forth. Um, Obviously, if it's still not heated, which I don't know,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I don't
I
I don't
get
know
they
if it's
close.
heated or not.
I'm
There's
sure by now it is.
Right, I would expect it to be, right, kind of thing. But with technologies and all the stuff, I mean, even just to run mini splits or something, but you don't have to repipe the whole building. But that makes sense that it would be an all-season hotel. But even if it's not, the spring, summer, fall, the crowds, like the mountains are great in the spring. Everything's blooming again. It's that rebirth. There's not a lot of deciduous trees in the Rockies, believe it or not. There are some. There's certainly a lot of aspens. So leaves changing, is a thing. Not like we get here in the East Coast of the U.S. with like the New England states where it's just a cornucopia of colors and rainbow of colors. But there is some vibrance. In the summer is just the perfect time to be there because it never gets overly warm. It's a high of 80 is all you get. And that's great with a breeze. So,
Mhm.
I get the outdoor stuff is very obvious, but just to get away from the city, the urban spaces, and I always find this interesting. I'm going to touch back to the information you shared. When Mr. Stanley was, diagnosed with tuberculosis in the first place. His doctor recommends he go someplace where there's fresh air.
Hmm.
And that's why a lot of institutional facilities were created out in open spaces. You
Right.
know, Here near us, kind of nearby us anyway, Crescent comes to mind. Up on a mountain, out in the open.
Yeah.
And it was meant to give you that recuperative fresh air that was going to make you better. And
Yeah.
did it? Maybe. Was it somewhat psychosomatic? Probably.
Yeah.
You know, did they know really what would be a cure? Absolutely not. We just weren't there yet. So therefore, getting away from places, and two things. One, it gets you away from a general population of people, so you're not going to infect anyone else if you're out in open
Right.
space, which is a good thing. And that's one part. But these kind of places were made around those needs, and I
Hmm.
think that's pretty interesting too, because that certainly allowed for it to get where it is.
Yeah. This reminds me a lot of the Mount Washington in
Yeah, I
Vermont.
was
Is it
thinking that.
Vermont? Uh,
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Yeah. I did the episode. You think I'd know? Um, and much like the Washington, this hotel was closed in the winter until 1983.
Yeah.
So I decided to kind of look up about the heat with the Stanley Hotel.
Mhm.
Hmm.
There is a lot of reviews on the hotel on like Hotels, Expedia, Yelp. All within like the last 3 years, they have said there is no heat, but the rooms stay surprisingly warm.
Oh.
Hmm.
There was one that says there's heated tiles though, so I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. From what I had read, I thought they had added heat. Uh,
Oh, there it is. The main hotel is now heated in the winter.
right.
Okay.
But the
Guests
lodge
will
and other.
depend on natural ventilation for cooling in the summer. There it is.
So no air conditioning, but heat.
I mean, you're up in the mountains.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. Again, it doesn't get that overly hot,
No.
which is nice. Again, that's a good reason to be there. That's why
Yeah.
people head up there and head to the mountains instead of to the beaches. That's their type of climate.
Now, Bert says
Two
if we
kinds of
want to
people in the
invest,
world, right? Beachy people and mountain people. So
Bert said if we want to investigate, then we should just tell them that we're Paranormal Lens and where they're going to investigate.
okay, that'll get us in. That's all it takes.
That and $250,000.
Yeah, that and a bag of money.
I'll give them one shiny penny and a high five.
And Heather says they would have to have heat pipes for plumbing would freeze. but especially now, because I'm sure in the days before heat, they would have drained the systems, like they would have winterized it, like people do
Yeah,
their
Yeah.
cabins.
exactly.
But can you imagine having to winterize a whole hotel?
Well, many places did it. I'm drawing a blank for it, but there is a rather also a paranormally active facility or hotel in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, that every winter had to shutter, because it's just
Is
Arctic
it?
weather
That's the one that you can't get. You have to get to by boat.
by boat. Yep. Yeah, I got to figure that out.
Oh,
That's an episode coming up at some point. I got to figure out what that is, but those kind of places weren't uncommon. And it's like go back, and then this is fictional, but it's not fictional. What I'm going to say, like, remember watching the movie Dirty Dancing?
yeah.
Through the Catskills, all the resorts, that were there, that everybody got away from the city to get to, that littered the Catskills, the Poconos, all those places were only summer resorts. As fall came, they all locked up and shut down, and somebody came back in the spring and started the process to get them reopened again. So same idea. They had in all those cottages and cabins, all the things that the families would stay at, that they all had to get winterized. So you think about one big building. How about a whole bunch of other buildings too?
Sure.
Cottages and cabins and all the stuff.
Yeah, all
And
10 other
plus the main
buildings.
buildings. That's crazy. But that's the way it was done, because that's just what you
But
could do.
that was a different lifestyle too, because you
Okay.
went for the summer. Like
You were
those
there.
families
Yeah.
checked in May and were there till August,
Sure.
September. Like,
Ah, the good old days.
yeah. I don't think that was the common folk though.
No. No.
I mean, I like that someone lived there in the 90s. Just went there.
Yeah.
And especially when it was in disrepair, like it wasn't even getting renovated. Like, it obviously had some warmth to it if they were able to kind of live out there for a bit.
Sure.
It's a place to go squatting. But then she got Jack Torrance. And she froze.
Yeah, not cool.
No, I don't like that.
I want to comment on something too, though. You mentioned 428, room 428. There's a man in there. The Phantom kisses in the sleep. The name of the person is something that you don't hear much anymore. Rocky
No.
Mountain Jim Nugent.
Yeah.
What a name! What a nickname, Rocky Mountain Jim. And we got to bring back nicknames like that. Yeah.
So
Where's-
Bert,
Is,
Bert
is that
wants,
is that Elizabeth?
Bert wants to know. So where's the woman in white?
Would that just be Elizabeth?
Well, I don't. Does she wear white? Where the chambermaid or the
All
maids
the
out?
things, she's in old timey clothing. It could be white.
Typically, a maid would be black or dressed in black.
It didn't get called out specifically as white. That's the old timey clothing to me. Doesn't strike me to be white necessarily, because that's obvious. And Bert's comment is there's a woman in white in every place.
Right.
Just
I get
like
it.
there's children laughter in every place.
Yes, yeah. There's some very consistent things in nearly all locations where there's claimed activity, and again, what goes back to is it real? Is it something that's legitimate, or is it our imaginations or our perception of what we should see? It's presented. It's what we're going to get here. We're going to see this, and there's a term that I'm drawing a blank on. I'm sorry, but does our mind wander to that automatically, or is it a thing? I have more of a belief seeing a woman in old time clothing than I do a woman in white in the place. I'll take that more seriously as a claim, because again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's everywhere.
So some of the pictures that you had up had images circled that looked like there were people there that probably weren't there. So
Yeah. They were some that when you type in Stanley Hotel, like they come up as like, oh, this was taken at the Stanley. It could have been forged. It could be real.
hmm
I just thought they were interesting to put in there.
again, road trip, and we have to take our own camera.
Road trip, yes.
So
Well,
I
there's
can,
nothing
I
to
can bring
it.
the Polaroid and just start snapping.
hmm
Yep. Well, that's the thing. Any of these places, we have the privilege of getting out and doing investigations. We're not desk bound people. We're not locked in. So,
No.
we've gone a lot of places. But the only way to truly understand the capacity and the size of a place, what it's capable of being, is getting there and seeing it yourself. You know, the scale and the size of it. We had no idea how big Tala was, right? I remember standing out in
Yeah.
front of it going, "Holy shit, look at this thing!" How are we going to do this?
I remember getting up to tell me going, I'm like 7 months pregnant and I have to walk this all.
Yeah, it's true.
So I was very thankful for the stool that you gave me
I
up.
would say, good thing a friend brought a stool, a folding stool
Yeah.
along. Yeah,
Folding stool.
I got smart on that trip. Actually, I bought it on the way out too. It's really funny. Um, so
I was going to sit on the ground too, and I'm like, there's no way I'd be getting up.
we would have got you up. Don't worry. No one left behind. But it's all of these places are like this. And it also it goes to the point my point earlier about seeing the place in the daytime, getting through it. Just getting a feel for the lay of the land of it. And you both having the sensitivity that you have, you can start to feel the place long before you get there, and get into the investigation process anyway. So maybe that gives you a place to be drawn to later, or a connection to be made that gets made that helps you, move through the process of the investigation a little differently than it would be just for going to certain rooms because they're highlighted. Perhaps it's none of those rooms. Maybe it's somewhere else. And I say this often, but as a spirit, I don't know if I want to be hanging out in the places where everybody says to go to, because I'm not
Right?
going to have to field all the same tripe questions of how'd you die, what are you doing here,
Well, I mean,
all the
that
boring
was
stuff.
like with Tala. Like everyone's like, oh, if you go to this room, you'll get this little girl, and everyone would go there. But there was
Yep.
another little girl named Emily, and it's like, no, I want to go. I want to go talk to her because no one talks to her. And
Right.
that's where I have the video of the dead bell just going off like crazy. It's like, finally.
Yep.
Well, sometimes spirits just want attention who don't get attention,
Yeah.
just like people.
True. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't want it.
Yep.
And we all have the ability to walk away, and sometimes spirits will do the same.
I mean, I've had that at Boobs.
Hmm.
I'd be talking to like Alois or something, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm done. He
Yep.
just leaves.
Sure. Well, you might be on a schedule, has somewhere else to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The train was leaving, and the wagon was leaving. He had to go collect his money in the next town over.
Yeah.
Maybe it's dinner time. Who knows?
Well, we know he didn't like to push away from the table.
Like good German food.
Maybe so. Oh.
That's one of the things we never dug into there. Like whether, like maybe it was one of the first German restaurants.
Could
Maybe
be.
maybe they did serve German food.
What you would expect, right? Based on the family and the culture and their proximity to where they're from, all that stuff. I would have to assume that's what they know.
Yeah.
You just go with what you do. So, and having. Well said. Uh, Bert is commented, as a spirit, I would be making people chase me around the building.
Oh my god, that's a good idea. I'm gonna have to take Bert's idea. If I was a ghost, I'd make people chase me.
Maybe that's what the whistling at Atala was.
Well, it's fair, right?
Yeah. Good idea. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's great.
Well, it caught our attention, and we wanted to see where it was. I mean, it just drew us toward it. So it was basically a chase of sorts. I remember on the fourth floor going room to room, trying to figure out what was
Yeah.
going on. So,
Yep.
all right. Well played. Well played.
Take notes, guys. Now we know what we need to do when we become ghosts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now we're gonna be so good at it. Oh my.
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna-
answer the opposite of every question asked.
Yeah.
Do you like being here? No.
1 star.
We're,
One star would not haunt. Let
we're
me
gonna
know.
get to the other side and be like, oh, that's what they were trying to say or trying to. Those people were just so thick.
Yeah.
So,
Good times.
uh, so the question always is haunted or not. What do we think? I mean, from the sounds of it, I would say yes. Um, there's some tragedy there that, an explosion, broken ankles, and then working there for the rest of your life.
I mean, even if the whole mirror theory is true, where it made a vortex,
Right.
Hmm.
I would say haunted. I mean, I love infinity mirrors, so I kind of believe it.
Yeah, well, this is one of those assumptive things, though. Like we assume places have to have death, drama, trauma, tragedy, all that stuff to be haunted,
I
and
feel like the energy
it's not
there.
true. Right.
Right.
Let me finish. It's not true. I think we've proven that through the years, of our own investigations and things we've all done, either together or independently. So, knowing there's only one death, and you shouldn't have deaths in hotels, right? That's not normal. So that doesn't surprise me that there's only one. In fact, it kind of surprises me there's even one. But the passion that people would have had, the commitment, especially the Stanley family had to the place to make it be what it is, the perceived bad guy that Dunraven was, and his association to that whole region makes sense that he would be there. It could be there anyway. The fact there's a concert hall, and we talk about this all the time with the creativity around arts. People are drawn to that, and there wouldn't have been much else in this area in any of the times up through the creation through the early 1900s to now, like late 1900s. As the area built up, this was the hub of things as well. So a lot of energy, a lot of activity there. So yeah, I can see it, and people would want to stay there because it was that spot for them, that warm spot, and
Hmm.
place that made them happy. So sure, absolutely, I think there's activity here. I think it's probably haunted.
Yeah,
I'd like to go find out for myself.
I would like to find out. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a hotel. Anybody can stay there.
road trip.
Yes, got to get the bus. Hi, here's another comment from Bert.
Huh.
We've seen a bunch of spirits that we were just passing through. Why couldn't some just like a place and decide to stay? Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a good point.
Chad,
Yeah.
we saw that at Boobs.
Yep.
Yeah,
That one we had to tell him to get out. 'Cause he liked back being with Ani and Tekla. We're like, nope, you're out.
Hmm. Yeah. Some interesting thoughts.
Yeah.
really good topic too. Thank you. You did a
Yeah.
good job with this.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting to get so much information. I thought a lot of it was going to be like, oh, here's everything about how Stephen King came up with The Shining from here. No, I didn't realize the history of the place. I mean, it had Molly it had Molly Brown,
Hmm.
someone who's seen tragedy.
Hmm.
We're just going to go up to a haunted hotel in Colorado.
Sure.
It's amazing to me how much the Molly Brown and John Philip Sousa really got around the country.
Right?
I was going to say, so did Teddy Roosevelt. Like he's
Yeah.
all over the place too. And
Yeah.
and speaking of people who saw trauma, he was a war veteran.
Yeah.
Of his men.
Mhm.
So, it's interesting the
I mean,
dynamic of all of them.
and I think that's the era that they traveled by train. Like these people were all over the country by train, and it's pretty cool.
Well, they were sort of celebrities too, though, right? I
Hmm.
mean, John
Yeah, a
Phillips
little
was
bit.
certainly not maybe not early in his career, but by the time he was at his peak, he was well known, he was
Hmm.
well respected. Molly Brown, of course, became a celebrity, and Teddy Roosevelt became a celebrity, as a
Right.
politician and then as a war hero. And this was, just different age.
Yeah.
So, um, they all probably had some relative affluence as well to be able to afford things like this,
Right.
which, is interesting. But many could afford the train. It was an affordable means of transportation in its day. Now it's not so much. Nothing is affordable anymore, I guess. But
Hmm.
it's still a less expensive means of transportation than it is flying. Would be so.
Yeah.
And it still takes you most of the places you want to go. And when I was planning a trip out west a while back, it didn't happen. But I was trying to get to Las Vegas, and I realized that it would have been like a couple $100 less if I would have taken the train, but it would have taken me like 3 days versus a couple hours. And that's the advantage of the flight. It's the rapid transit piece. You get there, you're there and back. If you wanted to in the same day, even you could. Where the train is just, it takes its time, and it is ground transportation, so it has to. But there is still a scenic value and an old timiness in the train where you'll see things you'll never see from the air. You'll
Right.
meet people you would never meet. You have the freedom to move about. Where the cabin and the plane, you're kind of in, and most of the time your seatbelt's on, so you're not commiserating with others. But you can if you want to on a train. You have a sleeper car so you can rest. You have a dining car so you can eat. There's a lot more to it, and it's kind of fun. So hopefully it's something that we all can get to experience sometime.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sure beats driving.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
All right,
should we talk about what's coming next? What
yeah,
else? All right.
I think we should.
moving along.
All right. Next week, March 24th, I will be doing the Edinburgh Vaults, Life and Death Underground. Um, the more I read about this, the more fascinating it is. What it started as and what it turned into, and um, it was a life, that's for sure. It was really interesting. So, looking forward to digging into that with everybody next week. After that, we've got March 31st, the end of March already. I can't believe it.
Right.
Bridgewater Triangle, that'll be Jamie. Lord to the Deep, Legend of the Siren. Then I'll be doing another one that's the Williamson Tunnels, Liverpool's Buried Past. And then Jamie will be coming back with Monte Cristo Homestead in Australia. So, so some definitely interesting things coming up.
Yep.
As normal, as usual, you found us here on either Facebook or YouTube, and you might be listening to us on Spotify or any of the streaming services later. We appreciate that. But you can find us also online at www.jotnixparanormal.com. That's JOTT-NYX paranormal.com. You can email us at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. If you want to check out all our links to social media and our catalog and stuff like that, you can go to Linktree, which is linktr.ee/paranormal lens. And if you like what we do here and you want to help us out a little bit, keep us caffeinated with coffee and help pay some of the bills, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/paranormal9. It's buymeacoffee.com/paranormal9. And that just helps us defray some of the cost of doing a podcast. It's not getting any cheaper to do these, and we enjoy it. We'll be here, but we like defraying that cost a little bit. So we appreciate that. So, any final thoughts, guys?
No, happy almost spring to everybody.
Uh,
Yeah.
Friday finally,
3
right?
more days.
We've been waiting for this for months and months and months. Although today it doesn't feel like we're any closer. It's
No. And
I mean,
tomorrow's the same.
another polar
last
vortex here on the East Coast.
last week it felt like we were there. This
Yeah,
week, not so much.
it was like 65 2 days ago, and now it's 25. So
Mhm. So one of our overhires came in this morning, and she looked at me and she goes, "Chad, it dropped 20 degrees in 2 hours last night."
Yeah.
It was it was balmy in the afternoon, and it was snowing when I walked the dog last night.
Yep. I had
Ridiculous.
the same thing. I was out in a sweatshirt last night, and this morning I put a parka on. Had to scrape a half an inch of ice off my car
I
from the
got
weather.
I get spoiled because we have three vehicles. One now is just used for heavy duty, so like hauling horses, stuff like that.
Sure.
I'm spoiled with the Explorer because it has a heated steering wheel and heated seats.
Yeah.
The Ram does not. So when I got in, I went to hit the button to turn on the heated everything, and I went, oh
You
No.
are the heat.
no.
Yeah.
I had to wait for the heat to start up, but I had cold hands.
I understand. You'll be okay though, right?
No, I survived.
Yeah, I keep saying the next car is going to have like an automatic start and all the stuff, all these bells and
Oh.
whistles. Because the things you learn as you move along, like, oh, this exists.
Both vehicles have automatic start, and I'm forever thankful for it.
There you go. At least you got that.
Good. So, all right. Well, let's wrap
nothing,
it up.
Nothing paranormal about that at all, right?
No,
So,
not at all.
sorry. Wait.
Although
But spring is coming, everybody, and that means we can get back out more, and get out and start investigating again. A lot of places will start to open for the season. Chad, hint, Whitehill, hint, right?
Well, they never closed, but
There's no heat
Technically, but we've been there when it's pretty cold in November, and it's oof.
yeah.
But a lot of places, in at least here in America, are going to start to open in the northern hemisphere anyway. Because spring is coming.
Yeah.
But for those in the southern hemisphere, don't wait. Fall is upon you, and winter is around the corner. So, get out there and get those investigations in. Start planning your time and go enjoy. Let us know where you're at. Touch base. We're happy to hear from you.
Yeah. Bert says yes. We need to investigate. I'm starting to get the shakes.
He's getting the itch. We're all getting the itch.
Going
Yeah.
through withdrawal. Yep. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll definitely have to get some stuff on the books here. So.
Yes, please.
Yep. Absolutely.
So. All right. Well, let me wrap this up, and then we'll see you guys next week. But in the quiet hours, when the halls are empty and the doors are closed, something still moves from room to room, unseen but not unfelt. A presence with purpose, a routine that never ended. At the Stanley Hotel, the maid may still be on duty. So until next time, stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. So, good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.